So, in the age of globalization, a pebble tossed halfway around the world can have a rippling effect that builds across the oceans and lands as a tidal wave. The coronavirus that we've experienced and are still experiencing is that payable, is that pebble, excuse me. It's the cause of a truly global pandemic. Supply chain is in the news more than it ever has been before. And more people are hearing the word supply chain and understanding just how significant and dependent we are on a global basis for everything that we do here. We all know about shortages in this product or that product, increased prices, long delays in getting products supplied to us. And this is all a result of the pandemic. And so what started, maybe small has had ripple effects across the world that's here. In 2020, AP has never been more important to business operations and business results. It's also been looked at in a different vein. It's been looked at for maintaining continuity, for maintaining and improving cash flow, and also for the important piece of how do we pay our suppliers? Because, when the pandemic first struck, what we saw was many CFOs in times of uncertainty want to hold on to their cash. So rather than paying early or maybe taking an early payment discount or paying when an invoice was ready to be paid, they decided to hold on to their money longer, just waiting to see, what was really going to happen. Were we going to have to be in a cash crunch, or were things going to open back up? So AP was put into a spotlight. There was more visibility on AP than we ever saw before. And, so now we're taking a look at, how AP responded to that. And, one thing that we've seen is that over the past year and a half, AP's importance has risen to all-time highs and remains at that apex. So let's take a look at some of these results here and what's going on. We all know that the pandemic was not an equal opportunity disruptor. It crowned winners and losers, and the dichotomy was striking. And it was to no credit or fault of any person or any business. It's just some were better prepared to handle what happened, and some industries were better suited for the needs and requirements than others were. But one of the great things about the AP profession is its commonality across industry and across region, which means that best practices and metrics and recommendations that we've been tracking for years are broadly applicable to everybody working in the industry. I should also note that the AP job market is hot right now. And so for those of you in your current roles that are looking to maybe explore in some additional responsibilities, now is a good time to investigate the job market, maybe surprised at what's out there and the respect and compensation levels that are now being attributed to AP. So just kind of on a personal note there, something that may be of interest to you. So the last edition of the annual State of Payables report we published in May of 2020. It was written during the height of chaos and uncertainty when the COVID-19 pandemic was just hitting the US and there was tons of uncertainty. Working from home, social distancing, and the nonstop barrage of headlines tracking the real-time human toll that the pandemic had taken, combined with the sizable confusion, both genuine and manufactured, made it difficult to focus really on anything else since the coronavirus was impacting just about every facet of society. And what we're seeing is that its continuing impact in 2021 is really of no surprise. As we see here, all but a very few have felt the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, with 63% of businesses across the world experiencing a significant to extraordinary impact over the past 16 months. So while you think some industries may not have been impacted, what we're seeing here is that almost 2/3 of industries said it was significant to extraordinarily impactful. Now, we wanted to take a look at which areas were impacted most by COVID. And, not surprisingly, sales and revenue and cash was number one. But what's interesting here is that while some saw a degradation of sales and revenue based upon the industry that they were in, others saw a market increase. So if you happen to be in technology, if you happen to be versus being in the retail sector, the brick and mortar sector, or you were in hospitality, restaurants, hotels, travel, your revenue was impacted negatively, but those in the technology space saw a market increase in demand for their solutions. Additionally, internal operations were significantly impacted. 25% of respondents said that was the most significant area of impact. And when you think about it, it's not surprising, because while some organizations were prepared for anything that came their way, many organizations were not. And so they were all of a sudden thrust into, how do we handle the work from home? How do we handle remote workers? How do we handle all the different issues that are taking place here? So it's kind of interesting to see which areas were impacted most here, from this. So as I mentioned before, the perception or the focus on AP is kind of at an apex. It's never been higher than it is today. And today, 67% of respondents state that the value of AP to their organization is either viewed as exceptionally valuable or very valuable. This is up, markedly over from just, a couple of years ago. So I wanted to bring Scott in at this point in time. And Scott, you've talked to many of your existing clients throughout the pandemic, and it's something that you do on an ongoing basis, as well as talking to many prospects, during the past year and a half. Why do you think, what are you seeing out there as far as perception of AP, and why is it at its highest level it's ever been?
Well, I think just as you mentioned, it's the manual aspect of a lot of those back office functions where, immediately you had people sent home to work, but still had to get into the office to gather the paper invoices coming in. And they in a lot of cases, right at the beginning, they couldn't all do it together. And so they'd be taking turns. And we were talking to accounts payable folks prior at the beginning and throughout. And it was just interesting to see how it did shift. It shifted quickly when businesses were faced with having to, focus on their human resources and where are they at, and they could figure out, okay, these people can be at home, these people can be on Zoom. Here's what we can do with who are the ones that are absolutely critical that need to be into the office. and accounts payable rose to the top. And it's interesting to have a lot of these conversations prior to COVID, where we would have good conversations with different stakeholders that are involved in automation, but challenging to get the attention. And we would be on the list, oh yeah, we want to do this. There's an automation initiative in place, just not quite this year. And it was a can that kind of kept getting kicked down the row. But once this happened, it kind of rose to leadership's attention, saying, okay, wait, we have people coming in. Okay, because we have mail coming in. Okay, wait a second, why? Is there something different that we could do? So it has changed. Yeah, those discussions are now involving leadership a lot earlier, and in a lot of cases being driven by leadership to say, hey, let's get an initiative in place so that if and when now AP is great, and they figured out, in a lot of cases, rotation schedules amongst the staff, and they were able to stay safe and get their job done. But they all kind of recognize, we need to figure out a way to just, prevent something like this happening again in the future, and just get ourselves a little more scalable and automated.
Great. And that kind of, the topics you're discussing here kind of lead us into the top priorities for 2021. And with better perception comes more consideration and larger budgets, as Scott mentioned. And this makes pursuing top priorities more realistic. But the reality in 2021 is that AP groups are rarely first in line to receive budget increases and special project approvals. You still have to make your case. They're not just handing out money because, hey, we need to automate. There's a lot of other departments need to automate as well. But the good news is AP is part of that conversation, no longer kind of an afterthought as they were in many organizations. And as far as automating technology, hey, AP works fine. Why are we going to spend the money for it? Now they understand what AP does at a much more granular level and the importance of business continuity. And so AP has, really kind of a seat at the table when it comes to those budget allocations and those raises, but they still need to make their case. The good news is that AP has become an area of investment. And most directly, what was shown in 2020 was that the AP automation market became as hot pretty much as any other enterprise software market out there. So when I look at the top priorities here, I see an industry that's finally realizing what we've been saying for years, is that AP can be a hub of intelligence. It's active and it continues to grow within the profession, but also it also continues to grow more broadly outside of AP, and finance and treasury and procurement are now seeing the merits of having all this information in AP shared and accessible. And so what we're seeing is that the top response here, is a more strategic priority than we've seen in the past. So you can see it outdistances number 2 there, which is, the ever-present reducing paper invoicing and reducing manual tasks. But now many more organizations are thinking more strategically, which is how do we improve the reporting and the data analytics? One of the quotes that I, love to use is if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. If you can't manage it, you can't improve it. And so while we're really excited, why we're really excited to see the number 1 response here being reporting and analytics is because organizations are starting to realize that AP does more than just process paper and pay checks to suppliers. There's a strategic value that can really add to the business's bottom line overall.
Yeah, I'll just comment too on that, Bob, that just that you can see the last one on that list there was reducing costs. And I think that's where automation maybe started back in the day. And that was where people kind of thought, oh, that's really your core objective. And yeah, you can see that has fully flipped, where they now see it as, no, we're a key hub to the business, and being able to provide visibility throughout the organization is what will really get everybody's attention and help drive some real value.
Yep. And we'll talk about this a little bit later, but it's the way AP, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, presented their case was just what you said, Scott. It's how do we reduce processing costs? And, while that's important to the organization, it didn't always get the attention or the budgets because it was a very tactical approach. But now as we're looking at AP as a hub of information, how it improve, working capital management, how it can impact supplier relationships, and how the information that it has can help overall spend within the organization. We're starting to see this priority change, and the pitch that AP staffers are making when they're making their business case are much more strategic in nature and not tactical. And
exactly. I mean, look at the next 2 after data analytics and improving reporting. You oftentimes in the past thought that eliminating paper and manual tasks and getting suppliers in would help reduce your processing costs, and yet the reality is it's tied more closely to the one at the top. When you have reduction of paper and manual tasks, you're removing errors and you're allowing for visibility to be in. You now know when you're fully automated and electronic, where your accruals are. Those aren't sitting hidden somewhere on some clerk's desk waiting to get input. They're there immediately. So you now know, and have that information. We talk a lot about outcomes, not necessarily on, technology and the what, but we deliver the why. The why is so that everybody has good visibility, including your suppliers. They can know if they're submitting electronically, they know immediately whether or not there's been a match to the PO, or whether or not there's been an issue or with their invoice, and they can feel comforted in that. And they can also regularly access and see the visibility of the status of their invoice, so they don't have to necessarily bug accounts payable. So certainly that improves efficiencies and reduces costs down at the bottom, but that's much more of a byproduct rather than the driver of automation.
Yeah, and I think we could spend all day on the slide just talking about it. But what you're talking about, Scott, is an important point. Is that AP automation is a journey; it's not a destination. And so we need to automate. We need to get out the inefficiencies, the errors, the exceptions that we're handling. And the byproduct of that will be reducing the costs of processing invoices. But we want to move to a more strategic role for AP. And that means once we've automated it, then we have all this data in one place, we can start interrogating the data and getting answers to questions and share those with the rest of the business so we can add value from an AP perspective in ways that you may not have thought of before. But I also like to say that AP, automation is not a destination, it's a journey that you just continually improve what you're doing and look for ways to add more value to the organization as a whole. Let's move on. So we do have a number of other slides here to cover here. So the top challenges, there's good momentum as we move into 2021, the second half of 21, but most AP groups are not without hurdles. In 2021, the standard challenges for AP remain top of mind and clearly highlight the need for end-to-end automation to manage invoice and payment processing. In fact, this year's top challenges to AP, such as lengthy approval times and the dreaded invoice exceptions, which you talked about a moment or two ago, reflect an even greater need for better overall visibility, management, and facilitation of core AP tasks. And the only way we're going to get this better visibility is through automation and through better reporting as to what's going on within the process itself. So while many AP functions were able to adapt to difficult changes and enhance their operations in the face of the unprecedented obstacles we faced over the last year and a half, sizable hurdles still exist for the typical AP department. AP's top challenges still remain very tactical in scope and are linked to everyday activities of receiving invoices, opening them up, processing the invoices, and then paying the invoices, pushing these things around. How do we manage the exceptions, etc. This creates organizational discord, as we all know and can imagine. But the problems that happen in AP, as Scott and I have talked about, don't stay in AP. They directly impact other parts of the business. If we're not paying suppliers on a timely basis, they're going to be picking up the phone and calling either the line of business contact I have or AP directly. This is taking away time from what these functions should be doing to drive value to the organization. And also suppliers, as we all know, if you frustrate a supplier long enough or often enough, they're not going to want to be a supplier with you if they have a choice. And many suppliers these days do have a choice on who they work with. And you think about who suppliers want to work with. They want to work with those buyers that are the easiest to work with, the ones that pay them on time, keep them informed, pay them the best rates. And the only way you can do that is by having a really automated and efficient process that you have there. And that's just, one of the interactions. That's outside of your organization. We also have huge impacts to finance, to procurement, to IT and treasury. Scott mentioned the accrual reporting going on there. If you're in an organization and you don't know what your outstanding liabilities are, and you only know how much cash you need when a payment is due, that puts Treasury in an unenviable position because they need to keep extra cash on hand for these, surprises, if you will, as opposed to knowing in advance exactly how much cash you need on hand to pay your suppliers at any point in time. It enables Treasury to improve their cash management. And when they improve their cash management, they can improve the return to the organization. If they improve the return on cash to the organization, that improves profitability overall. Scott, you kind of touched on this a little bit before, but why do invoice and payment approvals still take too long, and how does automating the process help alleviate these issues?
Yeah, it's just the payment of invoices. We were just talking to somebody recently. They were like, I want to get our organization where we can receive income quickly and pay slowly. In some cases, it's a lot of companies design it to move slowly just because they want to make sure that they've got everything right. They're not overpaying. They're not making mistakes. I mean, that's, buy low, sell high is kind of where everybody's focused. But what's happened is over time, some of those policies, procedures, practices have really slowed down the entire process. And it's gotten to where it's flipped the other way, where it's cumbersome. Like you said, there's, now suppliers are putting credit holds on actual orders and slowing down the business. So it's kind of come full circle where now it's sort of biting the business, and they need to get this fixed. it's taking too long because of what probably was put in place over years, maybe even decades.